few months ago, a mutual friend of Scotty and mine, Brett Wellman, called me and said, hey, I've got a friend that you need to meet. And I said, who? And he said, Scotty. And I said, you know, our friend requested him earlier today. And I had a feeling that God had a story for us with Scotty. I just knew that very moment. And I said, how can I help you? And I called him on the phone and we visited. And he said, I want to bring my ministry around the United States, and I want to share what's happened to me, some of my funny stories. Sometimes I'll share my guitar and my music, and tell the story of what Jesus has done with me. And I said, come on, brother. Without further ado, here's our friend, Scotty Plowman.
Wow, I tell you what, I am enjoying this, and I'll be honest with you, I am nervous as a cat at a rocking chair convention right now. I'm used to doing funny stuff, and I'm used to telling funny stories, but I'm used to doing it as a professional rodeo clown. I'm used to have a straight person, a straight guy. It means different things this day than it did back then. But I'm used to having a straight guy to bounce stuff off of and somebody to use as a weapon. And whenever you're standing up here like this by yourself, believe it or not, you got to make it happen. You got to get it there. And then you got to finish it all on your own. It's like being a Baptist preacher. You got to tell them what you're going to tell them. You got to tell them what you're telling them. And then you got to tell them what you just told them. It's called 3 points in a prayer. And speaking of being Baptist, I am Baptist, but I'm going to a Christian church right now. Well, no, I was going to a Christian church, but the last couple of weeks I've kind of decided to change my religion a little bit. I've become a free meal Baptist. I have been growing in my faith. And we've got one of the only congregations that actually is growing in town. Actually to the point that we're going to install double doors next week. But we've got the only baptistry in town with stretch marks. Okay, so much for fat jokes. I used to weigh 119 pounds. My wife and I got married. We wore the same size of jeans. We each wore 27-inch jeans. I can't get 27 inches up on my leg right now. But over the last 30 years, my wife and I have been married 30 years. And I am twice the man I was back then. So it's worked out pretty well. Puberty hit me about 10 years ago, so I finally had to start shaving every day. But my wife and I, we got married November the 10th, 1983. And I sobered up April the 11th, 1989. When I woke up, I had 3 kids and not much memory as to what had happened. And you know, police reports are pretty good to build your memory back on if you need to. Just to let you know, they are public record. So if you do have some blank spots and some times in your life, the police department is a fairly decent place to go ahead and get that information back from. Court records as well. The psychological exams are a little tougher to get a hold of, but with a good lawyer, it doesn't take much. But yeah, my wife and I, we've been proud parents for about the last 4 years. Our kids are all grown now, but they were really brats back then. And I got one of them over here right now. He's like, Daddy. But this is my youngest son, Josh. I really am proud of all of my kids. My wife and I, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. You know, how many of you guys think Christians absolutely positively need to be perfect? You guys ever heard that or seen that kind of attitude? I call them the chosen frozen. They're the folks that like to sit back in the back of the pew and they go ahead and just kind of pass quiet judgment. And you know when they've decided, and they look at you and they go, And my mother-in-law, she's one of those people, I'll tell her something and I'm always getting, You know, and my wife wife, on the other hand, it took her a while to get to that point, but that's another story we'll get into here in a little bit probably. But over the last 30 years, I have learned what it takes to make a happy marriage, and that's 2 TVs.
Amen.
You know, how long have you guys been married?
I'm not married.
You're not married. Don't say, You may want to talk to the pastor back there. He probably looks at that way. You guys married? Are you guys living in just... Brother, we need to talk after this over.
Someday we'll have some more weddings.
Okay. Well, okay, but you guys are young enough. Let's go ahead and put this in perspective. In your 20s. You're in your 20s, good, okay. You know, the pocket rocket is a fine, effective ministry tool, just to let you know. You just kind of walk down the aisle, it's just like, brother, believe. The high voltage Church of God, we will light you up. Oh Lord, that is him. I'm sitting here going, in the name of be healed, man. I saw him bar the other night. It kind of reminds me that Jews do not recognize Jesus as a Savior, you know, and the Catholics don't recognize the Protestants, and the Baptists don't recognize each other at the video store. Yeah. That's why you don't kiss your wife standing up. They think you're dancing. Solitaire is a sin that really shouldn't affect other people. What if somebody walks by and sees you? He's playing them cards with it. He's playing them cards all by himself. He's practicing sin. Oh, Lord. I'm sorry. But I have had the great fortune over the course of my life. Well, this is a cool chair. I may have to bless my ministry with that before we leave tonight. Yeah, baby. Yes, it is. I notice the older I get, the more I appreciate fluffy stuff. You know, creature comforts being what they are. You guys familiar with the differences between hillbillies and river rats? They're kind of the same people, but the people that river rats are kind of the low life of the southern redneck chain. Just, you know, we're down there in the mud and we're down here. Well, I grew up, I was a redneck, but we were river rats. My grandmother, my mom's mother, they grew up with Pattonsburg, Missouri, 1993. It was a town they moved up there because they were just tired of cleaning mud out of the living room every time it rained. And but there's a bridge up there that they rebuilt in 1994, and it's called the Baloney Bridge. And for the old bridge it being is where my mother grew up. It was off on the left-hand side of the road down there. It was an old house that was built up on blocks about this high. And there was a boat tied to the back. And over the course of years, water had came in and it had run the well. They had sanded the well in, so they had to haul water into town. Which means also that other facilities within the house were not available. If I was to ask you guys what a lightning skillet or a thunder bucket was, are there really any of you guys that can tell me what it is? Do you know what a thunder bucket is? Or a lightning skillet? Okay, you ever seen them white enamel pots at the auction? At some of these farm sales and stuff, you'll see these white enamel pots with a little red line around them. Don't take that home and use it for a bean pot. That was not its original intention. You can plant flowers in it and they'll probably grow really good because there's probably stuff deep down in the enamel there to help that out. But that is what they refer to as a thunder bucket. Well, that's what you used at night. It stayed underneath the bed, and if you had to do something in the middle of the night, you just pulled that out, you did what you had to do, slide it back in there early the next morning, took it outside, dumped it, you know. I know, it's but you know, it is what it is. And well, 5, 6 years of age, we also had another little building off behind the house at my grandma's, and it was used during the daylight hours, a good old-fashioned privy, which I got into track for a minute. This is the first time I have ever been in a town that had a historic marker to an outhouse. Now that's community pride, and a 2-story outhouse to boot. I mean, we were pretty proud of a 2-hole privy where we were, but to have one on each floor and have it, you know, it really kind of insinuated really wanting to rent out the penthouse, didn't it? Oh, really? Right across the street? I'd never seen that, you know. So-and-so's 2-hole, 2-story privy.
My uncle lived in that house.
Well, I was going down the road one day. I was going away to a rodeo, and I saw this outhouse that had an antenna up on it. And I pulled in, and I go, "What's going on here?" This guy goes, "I just moved in here." And he said, "I just got TV hooked up." And I thought, "Well, that's pretty cool." I was coming back through the other way. There were 2 antennas on. I said, "What's going on there?" He said, "I ran it out the basement." But at my grandma's house, there was the main house, and then there was a hog barn over here. We had this over here. And there was this lane that was crowded up, and it was just a walkway. And in the summertime, you guys get itchweeds down here? They grow up, they got kind of an almond-shaped leaf, and you touch them, I mean, you just itch like nobody did it. It's like a weed that bites you. I don't know if you guys got them down here. I know you guys got plenty of other stuff down here that bites. But you work your way down through there. Now, my grandma lived in this house till I was like 8 years old. So from the time I was like 4 to 6, running around on the farm by myself, if I had to go, everybody was too busy, I had to go on my own. And that probably explained a lot of accidents. And of course, the time with my grandma's. But you look down through there, and there's shade trees everywhere, and it's all arched up. And then there's this old building back at the back of the trail. And so you make your way back there. And it kind of reminds me of the scripture, the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Because fear was with me. Do you know why? It wasn't because of anything between there and there. But it's because my grandma had a Benny chicken that used to roost in the outhouse. And you never knew when she was going to be in there. And if she had eggs, she wasn't real happy about you being in there. So you'd be all sat down getting ready to do business, and the next thing you know, you got a chicken in your face. She would be on top of an old Sears and Roebuck catalog there that was laying there upside down, because you're supposed to start from the back of the catalog, because Grandpa liked to look at the ladies that were in the front. You didn't want to tear those out too soon. But you'd be sitting there, and I mean, really, when you're sitting there, and it seems like an unreasonable fear, because a bounty chicken is just, twice the size of your fist. I mean, you see Cornish game hens, and you're wondering, oh, if I'm going to have that for dinner, I'm going to need 10 or 12 of those. We're back to the Free Meal Baptist thing, just to let you know. But, you know, we get unreasonable fears in our life, a lot. And sometimes we have to overcome those fears to take care of very important matters. Like, I've had a lot of fear in my life. I had a great fear of my mother. Bless her heart. She's still around. The fear thing kind of leads me to talk about some other stuff. But I overcome fear eventually. So much so that I always wanted to be a cowboy. You know, there's a difference between being fearful, and then there's a difference between having zero fear. Zero fear is a problem too. When I was the ripe old age of 5, my mom and dad threw myself and my sister in the car, and we drove north to Sydney, Iowa. Now, Sydney, Iowa, for those of you, anybody here other than a couple of you familiar with the rodeo business at all? Okay. Sydney, Iowa, during the 60s, 70s, and into the early 80s, was one of the top 40 outdoor rodeos in the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. And it was on one of those trips. I can't remember who it was, but the barrel clown that was there that day, that was the day I decided I wanted to be a cowboy. I decided at that age that I wanted to ride bucking horses, or I wanted to rope calves, or I wanted to do whatever it took to be a cowboy. So we go home, and we live very near an Amish community. And you guys, Gary, you ever milk cows? Okay. If you got bull calves, what do you normally do with them? Cut them. And you don't keep them around long, do you? They go bye-bye in a hurry. Well, my daddy, they were cheap calves, and that's how my daddy got started in the cow business. So he was buying young dairy calves, and eventually started crossing them with better beef and bulls, and now my dad built a cow operation out of bottle calves, basically. Well, these calves were all broke, and we were out there, and I wanted to rope calves, and I was going to be a calf roper. And I got a halter on this one calf, and I go to throw him. Of course, he was as high as my chest, and I didn't think nothing about it. I wasn't scared, by golly. So I take a fishing stringer, and I go to tie his back foot up, and he kicked me right underneath the chin. And he peeled me back like a tuna can. And that skin just rolled up. I'm surprised I don't have a scar there today. I mean, it really took a hold of me. But, you know, those are the kind of problems a lack of fear can get you. Now, my wife, I haven't talked to her in like 3 days because I'm scared of her. And there's probably good reason. She says, "You're going where for what?" I thought we'd clean house. I'm on vacation this week. I said, "Don't you know I go to Oklahoma City every year for the IFR?" She goes, "Well, I'm not going with you, so I got to talk to my friend Dale Bradbury from Iowa and my son, and it's a manly trip this weekend, so hopefully she'll have a day or two to cool off before we get down." And you know, I mean, how many guys can remember when you first met that little gal that you just so sweet that you could eat her? I'm here to tell you, one of these days you'll wish you had. But you know, I'm a father, and I am a proud father. I did make that, you know, and I need to tell you a little bit about our kids. I don't want to tell you about our first son. Name's T.J. Plowman, Terry James. And, you know, the birth process is wonderful. It's a miracle. So they say. I watched it, and yes, it is a miracle to a degree. If you got a janitor around, it's okay. You know, they talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. I can remember looking in that mirror. I'll never be the same again. Oh, dear Lord. How did that happen? Before I go too far, I think I want to upset that horse. But you get to walk on these edges. I mean, you know, what's going to happen? But at any rate, we were expecting him, and we bought bottle sterilizers, and we bought tongs, and we bought rubber gloves, and we bought plastic bags, and there wasn't anything that we weren't ready to do that their baby wasn't going to get anything ingested that wasn't oiled, sterilized, and totally untouched by human hands. Because that's what the book said. By the time we got to Josh, he was sharing his bottle with the dog. You learn these things. The book ended up as a way to balance out the baby bed, because the floor was kind of crooked right there. That book worked out just perfect. It just leveled it right off. But we were a part of this group medical practice. And in the last few months, I don't think we saw the same doctor twice. We go in for this checkup, we see this doctor. We go in for this checkup, we see Dick. this doctor. And we come on, and I come home from work one day, and it's 4th of July. My wife ended up being in labor for 25 hours. And 4th of July, and I come into the house, and she goes, I think it's time. And so I call up, and I get this answering service, and they go, well, the doctor, I talked to him, and I tell him these are the pains, it's this, and he goes, is this her first child? I go, no, sir, this is her husband. And so he get her to the hospital, and that little miracle took off. And then it happened again with Eli and Josh, and then our daughter. And, over time, I'd been rodeoing for a living, and about the time our oldest was getting around, I decided I wanted to stay at home and be a daddy. I didn't want to be out on the road because I had a responsibility. Even people like me get given grand responsibilities. And my responsibility was, as a husband and a father, was to make sure that my children grew up in the way that they should go, as an example, and by teaching. And allow them to go ahead and grow up into usable adult people. And we almost made it. Oh, I can't say that. I've had the great privilege, I really have, of working with all of my sons on jobs outside the house. And it is a tremendous privilege, it is a tremendous honor when you realize that your son is a guy that you would like anyway. Because he's standing up, he's doing his work, he's doing his part, he's being responsible, he's growing in his own job. And you sit down and you see the end product where it's at, and you think, God, how did that happen? As big a screw up as I am. But, well, you know, they had a chance to learn a work ethic for a long time. Not only have I been a professional rodeo clown, I've been a professional horse trainer. And how many of you guys have ever had the opportunity to go to Kansas City over the Christmas time? Have any of you guys ever had a chance to do that? Have you ever heard of the Plaza Lights in Kansas City? It is a big time deal. If you ever get a chance to come visit our wonderful city, and there are parts of it that is pretty cool. I'm not a city guy, but we do have some neat stuff up there. And one of them is the Plaza Lights. And on Thanksgiving evening in Kansas City, the Plaza area lights about 500,000 lights in a downtown area. It is a tradition, it's a big deal. People rent high-rise, they rent motel rooms, they do this. But the cool thing about the Christmas season on the plaza is they have carriage rides that they take people around, and it's a tradition for a lot of people. So, it gives opportunities for guys like me to go to town on occasion. And like I said, I've been a professional horse trainer for a few years. And at the time and place, there was a lady by the name of M.J. LaDonna who had the Kansas City Series LTD. And she had a horse named Pudge. Well, that wasn't what she called him, but I think she called him like Prancer or Stallion or Champion or something like that. You know, you almost got to say those names with a lisp. His name is Prancer. Do you want to see my horse Champion? He's a stallion. That was wrong, wasn't it? I probably shouldn't have went there, should I? Are you more worried about the fact that I might have done that too good? Just to let you know, I have been paid for wearing a tutu and makeup. Does that make you feel any better about things?
You didn't have a picture?
Yeah, all over Facebook. You didn't check me out. If you guys ever follow me on Facebook, Scotty Plowman. I accept everybody. I never tell anybody no. So if you want to be my friend on Facebook, go ahead and ask me. I'll let you in. And you may not even, even some more revealing photos on there. But I want to get back to Pudge. Pudge was an ice cream Belgian who was 4 years of age, stallion, And she had acquired him through some possible evil hook by crook, I don't know. But a young guy that she was was our neighbor. And she was 60, he was 20, and he convinced her he was a horse trader and got the horse home and realized he wasn't. So I get a knock on the door one day and he goes, "Oh, Scotty." I go, "What?" And he goes, "Could you help me with this horse?" I go, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm sorry it wasn't any good." "No, come back, please." I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was a disappointment. I really am. If you want to fill out a complaint, go ahead and we'll work on. Let me know where I lost you, and I'll see if I can fix it. Okay?
No, I have dinner plans. I only come for a little bit.
Oh well.
Yeah. It was good.
You got a girl.
Didn't you know this was on the calendar? You know you could have ate before you came. I'm just saying. I mean, I might have inferiority issues. This might cause me to climb a clock tower later. I just wanted to know. Well, you go ahead and eat.
All right. Appreciate
I hope you don't get a bellyache or nothing.
it. Thank you.
All right, bye. Bet he never leaves another show. But Pudge was a big old horse, and he was a true tunner. Any of you guys ever been around draft horses? We had to have a 36-inch collar made for this horse. I mean, he was huge. And he was a stallion when we got him, but not for long. I remember the day we fixed that. I think the vet actually had to get out a pair of bolt cutters to finish things up. And he got this sliced and this sliced, and he goes, "Uh-oh, that don't fit." And he really came out with these, looked like these big old set of dehorners, and I'm like, "Oh, God." And all I heard was, "Grunch, grunch." Oh, I felt sorry for him. But that's not what I want to talk about. So I started helping Pudge, and we're teaching him to wear the harness. And I used PVC pipe along the side to get him used to things rattling. And then I hook him up to the logs and we teach him to pull. And he was doing so good. And matter of fact, this big old horse, I even threw a saddle on him a few times to help him understand steering. And one day the day came, I didn't have anything to work with, and she did. She had this training sulky. And it was homemade. And it was a piece of work. Let me tell you, it was basically a car axle with a seat on it that had a spring on it. This will be important later. And big, huge shafts. Now, I know you guys used to be around normal size horses. You know, you can put your feet between your legs. You can pick them out here, here, and here. And whenever we're talking about a ton horse, we're talking about a foot that's almost as big around as this chair.
Like a Clydesdale.
Yeah, every bit of it. So we get him where we can handle his feet. So finally the day comes, we're going to hook him up to the sulky. And we get him all hooked up, and actually the first day went quite well. We drove him 4 or 5 miles down the road and back, which is really cool, you know, as people are driving by, you know, the little kids are like, "You're waving back." Because you know they don't get to see that stuff every day. Well, the next day, the kid that was supposed to be helping me he's running late. I need to get this horse drove. So I decided to go ahead and take care of it myself, because it had gone so well before. So now this sulky was had. There's a right way and a wrong way to hook up a cart with shaft. You don't really pull it up to a horse. You're not really supposed to. You're supposed to hold it up. You're supposed to move the horse in position. But this horse is almost 10 foot long. And It takes a lot of work to do this, especially when you're in a pasture with a lot of hills, dips, and didos. So I tied him up to a fence post, and we go ahead and we get him hooked up. And I bring him around, and I get in the cart, and it's going good, and we're headed down this hill. Who's familiar with what a holdback strap is? Or a breech strap? For those of you who don't know, it's a strap that goes across the horse's rump, and it's basically your brakes. When your horse stops, your carriage stops. This stuff up front, the collar, when your horse moves forward, he brings everything with it. When I sit here, and my horse stops, and the whole back strap moves up under his tail, and then my coach stops. And he did exactly what you expect. He cringed like this. So I'm like, easy boy, I'm gonna get off and fix this. Only he's not real happy about having this hunk of leather up underneath his tail. And so he kind of butts a little bit in place. And I hold the rein, I go, no. And he goes forward a little bit and kicks up a little more. And about this far from my face, I get this. So I duck back, and he lunges forward and bucks. Well, in the process of that, are you guys familiar with the scientific principle of inertia? My body moved back in equal value to the force that he moved forward. And the seat, which I landed on the back of, was okay. I stopped, except for the 6-inch spring that was in it. And it goes ahead and it braces itself all the way down to the ground and launches me about 35 feet in the air. While I am in the air, I am watching this horse go up across the pasture and kicking this two-wheel sulky apart. And every bit of harness is flying through the air. And as I land, my body rotates, and I land flat on my back. Every joint in my body popped. My fingers, my toes.